What did you do today, Alice?
I went to the zoo today.
When did you leave for the zoo?
I left around 10 in the morning.
Where is the zoo located in Houston?
It's near the downtown area, Dad.
Who went with you to the zoo?
My friends, Sarah and Emily, came along.
Whom did you meet at the zoo?
We met a friendly zookeeper there.
Which animals did you see first?
We saw the lions and tigers first.
Whose idea was it to visit the zoo?
It was actually Emily's idea, Dad.
Why did you choose the zoo today?
We wanted to see some animals today.
How did you feel about the visit?
I had a lot of fun there.
What did you enjoy the most?
I enjoyed watching the playful monkeys.
When did you return home, Alice?
I got home around 5 p.m.
Where did you go after the zoo?
We had lunch at a nearby cafe.
Who paid for the lunch today?
Sarah paid for everyone's lunch today.
Whom did you sit next to at lunch?
I sat next to Emily at lunch.
Which dish did you order at lunch?
I ordered a chicken sandwich, Dad.
Whose suggestion was it to eat there?
Sarah suggested the cafe, and we agreed.
Why didn't you go somewhere else?
The cafe was close and convenient.
How was the food at the cafe?
The food was delicious and fresh.
What did you do after eating?
We walked around the park nearby.
When did you leave the park, Alice?
We left the park around 3 p.m.
Where did you plan to go next?
We planned to visit a bookstore afterward.
Who suggested visiting the bookstore?
I suggested it. I love books.
Whom did you meet at the bookstore?
We didn't meet anyone we knew there.
Which books did you buy today?
I bought a travel guide for Houston.
Whose book recommendations did you follow?
I followed the store's top picks list.
Why did you buy that travel guide?
I want to explore more of Houston.
How long did you stay at the bookstore?
We stayed for about an hour, Dad.
What else did you see in Houston?
We visited some historic landmarks today.
When did you plan to visit those?
We planned it yesterday evening.
Where are those landmarks located?
They're mostly in downtown Houston, Dad.
Who was your guide at the landmarks?
We didn't have a guide, we explored ourselves.
Whom did you ask for directions?
We used our phone maps for directions.
Which landmark was your favorite, Alice?
I loved the old courthouse building.
Whose idea was it to visit landmarks?
It was actually my idea, Dad.
Why do you like historic places, Alice?
I enjoy learning about the past.
How did you feel after the tour?
I felt happy and satisfied with the day.
What did you learn from the visit?
I learned a lot about Houston's history.
When do you plan to explore more?
I'm planning another trip next weekend.
Where will you go next time, Alice?
I want to visit the museum next.
Who will go with you next time?
I think Emily and Sarah will join again.
Whom will you invite for the trip?
I might invite my cousin too.
Which museum are you planning to visit?
The Houston Museum of Natural Science.
Whose idea was it this time?
It was my cousin's idea to go there.
Why are you so excited about it?
I love learning about science and nature.
How will you get to the museum?
We'll probably take the bus there.
What time will you leave for the museum?
We'll leave around 9 in the morning.
When do you plan to return home?
We'll return in the late afternoon.
Where will you have lunch that day?
We'll probably eat at the museum cafe.
Who will decide on the lunch spot?
We'll decide together when we're there.
Whom will you inform about your plans?
I'll tell my friends and cousin.
Which exhibit are you most excited for?
I'm excited for the dinosaur exhibit.
Whose stories about dinosaurs do you remember?
I remember your stories from when I was little.
Why did you always love those stories?
Dinosaurs always fascinated me, Dad.
How do you feel about traveling often?
Traveling makes me feel alive and happy.
What do you love most about traveling?
I love exploring new places and cultures.
When did you first start loving travel?
I started loving travel during high school.
Where did you go on your first trip?
My first trip was to New York City.
Who inspired you to travel more?
You inspired me, Dad, with your stories.
Whom do you think of while traveling?
I think of you and our family adventures.
Which place do you want to visit next?
I'd love to visit California next.
Whose travel advice do you follow?
I follow your advice and travel blogs.
Why do you prefer traveling with friends?
Traveling with friends is more fun and memorable.
How do you plan your trips, Alice?
I research online and make a rough plan.
What's the most important thing when traveling?
Being open to new experiences is important.
When do you feel most excited during trips?
I feel excited when exploring new cities.
Where do you see yourself traveling next year?
I see myself traveling across Europe next year.
Who would you like to travel with there?
I'd like to travel with my best friends.
Whom will you visit while in Europe?
I'll visit my old college friend in Paris.
Which European country excites you the most?
Italy excites me the most with its culture.
Whose culture do you find most interesting?
I find Italian culture very interesting and rich.
Why do you think traveling is important?
Traveling broadens my perspective and knowledge.
How does traveling affect your daily life?
It makes me more adaptable and understanding.
What are you planning to do tomorrow?
I plan to relax and explore more places.
When will you next visit Houston Zoo?
I'll probably visit again in a few months.
Where will you go after Houston Zoo?
I might explore other parts of Texas.
Who will you ask to join you?
I'll ask my friends or maybe family.
Whom will you tell about your next plans?
I'll inform you first, of course, Dad.
Which place in Texas excites you?
I'm excited to visit Austin next.
Whose stories about Austin have you heard?
I've heard great stories from my uncle.
Why do you want to visit Austin?
Austin has a lively music scene and culture.
How do you plan to travel there?
I'll probably drive there with friends.
What will you do first in Austin?
I'll explore the famous live music venues.
When do you plan to go to Austin?
I'm thinking of going next month.
Where will you stay in Austin, Alice?
I'll stay at a friend's place there.
Who is your friend in Austin?
My college friend, Jenna, lives there.
Whom will you visit with Jenna?
We'll visit some local cafes and parks.
Which park do you plan to visit?
I plan to visit Zilker Park first.
Whose advice are you following for Austin?
I'm following Jenna's advice, she knows best.
Why do you enjoy traveling so much?
Traveling makes me feel alive and adventurous.
How do you stay safe while traveling?
I always stay alert and plan ahead.
What do you usually pack for trips?
I pack light, just essentials and a camera.
When will you start packing for Austin?
I'll start packing a few days before.
Where do you want to go after Austin?
I'd like to visit San Antonio next.
Who would you like to travel with then?
I might ask Jenna to join me again.
Whom will you share your travel stories with?
I'll share them with you and Mom.
Which travel story is your favorite, Alice?
My favorite is our family trip to Yellowstone.
Whose idea was the Yellowstone trip?
That was Mom's idea, and it was amazing.
Why did you enjoy Yellowstone so much?
The natural beauty and wildlife were incredible.
How do you feel after remembering that trip?
It makes me happy and nostalgic, Dad.
What other places do you want to visit?
I want to explore more national parks.
When will you plan your next big trip?
I'll start planning early next year.
Where do you dream of traveling someday?
I dream of traveling to Japan one day.
Who would you take with you to Japan?
I'd love to take you and Mom.
Whom would you visit in Japan?
I'd visit some old school friends there.
Which part of Japan interests you most?
Kyoto interests me with its temples and gardens.
Whose travel blogs do you read for Japan?
I read travel blogs from seasoned travelers.
Why do you want to visit Japan?
I'm fascinated by the culture and history.
How do you plan to learn Japanese?
I'll start with some online courses.
What will you do if you visit Japan?
I'll explore cities, temples, and local cuisine.
When do you plan to visit Japan, Alice?
I hope to visit in the next few years.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I see myself traveling and working remotely.
Who will be your travel buddy in future?
I hope to have friends and family as buddies.
Whom will you miss while traveling?
I'll miss you, Mom, and our family.
Which country would you live in temporarily?
I'd love to live in Italy for a while.
Whose lifestyle do you admire the most?
I admire travelers who balance work and travel.
Why do you admire those kinds of travelers?
They live freely and see the world.
How do you balance work and travel?
I plan my work around my travel schedule.
What do you think is most important in life?
I think experiences and happiness matter most.
When do you feel the happiest, Alice?
I feel happiest when exploring new places.
Where do you find inspiration for travel?
I find inspiration in travel documentaries.
Who is your favorite travel documentary maker?
I like the work of Anthony Bourdain.
Whom do you talk to about your travel dreams?
I often talk to you and my close friends.
Which dream destination is at the top?
Japan is at the top of my list.
Whose stories about Japan inspire you?
Your stories about Japan always inspire me.
Why do you think travel is educational?
It teaches me about different cultures and perspectives.
How do you feel about our conversation today?
I feel great, it's nice to share my thoughts.
What will you do after this conversation?
I'll probably relax and plan my next trip.
When will we talk again, Alice?
We'll talk soon, Dad, maybe tomorrow.
Where will you be tomorrow evening?
I'll be at home, relaxing after work.
Who will you call if you need help?
I'll call you, Dad, if I need anything.
Whom will you say goodnight to tonight?
I'll say goodnight to you and Mom.
Which show will you watch tonight?
I'll watch a travel documentary, as usual.
Whose recommendations will you follow for tonight's show?
I'll follow your recommendations, Dad.
Why do you like watching travel shows?
They inspire me and make me excited to travel.
How do you unwind after a busy day?
I unwind with a good book or show.
What time do you plan to sleep?
I'll probably go to bed around 10.
When will you visit us again, Alice?
I'll visit you next weekend, Dad.
Where do you plan to take us then?
Maybe we can go to the new park.
Who will come with us on the trip?
Just us, maybe Mom if she's free.
Whom do you want to surprise with a visit?
I want to surprise Grandma with a visit.
Which gift will you bring for Grandma?
I'll bring her some flowers and a book.
Whose idea was it to visit Grandma?
It was mine, I miss her a lot.
Why do you think Grandma will be surprised?
She doesn't know I'm planning to visit.
How will you end your day today?
I'll end it by watching a travel show.
What time will you start your day tomorrow?
I'll start my day around 7 a.m.
When will you start planning your next trip?
I'll start planning tomorrow morning.
Where do you see yourself in a year?
I see myself traveling even more.
Who do you think will join your travels?
My best friends and maybe new travel buddies.
Whom will you talk to before you sleep?
I'll call Mom to say goodnight.
Which part of today was your favorite?
Talking to you about travel was my favorite.
Whose conversation do you enjoy the most?
I enjoy our conversations the most, Dad.
Why do you love talking about travel?
It's my passion and makes me excited.
How do you feel about saying goodbye now?
I'm a little sad, but I'll see you soon.
What will you do until we meet again?
I'll keep exploring and sharing my stories.
When will you visit us next, Alice?
I'll come by next weekend, I promise.
Where will we meet when you visit?
Let's meet at home and plan our outing. Bye, Dad. See you again soon.
Bye, Alice. See you soon, take care.